Hey everyone, welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast, the ultimate blueprint to self-love and inner peace. I'm your host, Danielle Van. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, a life coach to women, meditation teacher, and author, I've spent my life studying and learning from the stories that make us human. It's my passion and goal to help you shift your mindset and create a lifelong revolution to help you reach your greatest potential. Healing and beginning the journey of therapy is often a scary one for many, especially when unsure which type of therapy to choose or even what's involved. Knowing where to start and what to select is an important element of any journey. Then add trying to live a mindful life. Well, confusion can take over if you're not sure exactly where to start. And this is often where many people call their healing journey quits. That's why therapist Adalina East and I sat down to chat about mindfulness and therapy on her podcast, Cosmic Leadership. She was gracious enough to allow me to share it here with you. And you are in for such a treat as we talk about the 5 master areas of our lives and how to meet them, the 6 elements of mindfulness that can highly improve your life, calming anxiety through breathwork, EMDR, and how to really avoid stopping your self-growth journey. If you've ever wondered what therapists talk about when they're alone, this is a great conversation to let you inside. So sit back and listen. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast starts right now.
As I said in the introduction, I'm so excited to have Danielle A. Van with us here today. She is such an incredible inspiration to me, and I'm sure to so many of you. And I'm really excited to chat with her about mindfulness today. Thank you so much for being here, Danielle. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I love that we're doing this again.
Me too. I loved being on your podcast. Thank you again for having me.
Oh my gosh. You know, it's so interesting how much feedback came through that. It was just, I love when there's a guest that resonates, and you definitely did. So when you said, let's do this again, I'm like, heck yeah, let's do this again.
Yay. And we'll link to my episode with Danielle on her podcast below. So Let's find out more about you today. I'm so excited to dive into mindfulness. It's become such a buzzword in the last few years. I feel like it's often very misunderstood.
Yes.
Can you chat with us a little bit about what mindfulness means to you?
Absolutely. It is a buzzword. And what I find to be so interested in, like the movement of mindfulness, is that people think that it is this very Zen practice that you must have your, entire life together in order to be a part of it. And not at all. Yeah. Right. Mindfulness really is a movement of self-acceptance without judgment. That's the biggest piece. And learning what works for you. Right. Yeah. So that's the biggest part of mindfulness. What works for me? What's centered within me? What do I believe in? I call it the 5 masters of our lives, right? Mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, and physical, in whatever order it is that you're working on at that point. But if you can meet your life in those places, you can mindfully live your life.
I so agree. And I love that you included financial. I feel like many of us talk about the other 4.
Right.
I realize this is a little out of left field, but let's talk about mindfulness and finances. That's a big thing.
It is a huge thing. Yeah. So mindfully being financially aware is that you're recognizing what triggers may keep you out of mindfulness, right? And I may have a really rough day and hit Amazon and begin to load up my cart because I'm trying to emotionally satisfy this dysregulation that I have. Or, I am choosing to go out and spend money on my credit card instead of knowing that that could wait, right? So anytime that we do anything that works against our mindfulness, we take ourselves further out of mindfulness. We take ourselves further out of center, which is the point of mindfulness, is to come into that balanced center. So finances are a huge thing. So many of us don't have control over it. And then it's the thing that's racked up really high. And we're like, I'm so peaceful here, here, and here. Right. But I don't have this piece. And if we don't have the 5 masters under control in some level, right, we're not going to control our lives, but have some kind of peace with it, we're not going to be able to practice mindfully every single day.
That's so true. And I think, this is why I love having conversations with other therapists. It's just the best. We speak the same language.
Right.
But it's that numbing thing, and I think every single person in this whole world numbs in some way.
Sure.
Mine is TV. That's how I know. And I know if I've just watched 2 episodes in a row of something, done.
Right.
What are you numbing from? Look at yourself. Right. What are you trying to distract from? What is the pain that's coming up right now that you're trying to avoid? I'm not saying never have an 8-hour binge day that you plan with like a friend for your favorite show. But, when you're doing it to numb, you have to investigate.
Right.
So what I would challenge people to do also is if you're having a rough day and you're filling up your Amazon cart, what are you avoiding? What is the pain point there?
And what's so interesting is I have 2 numbing factors. One is work. And I know I do it. Like if I don't want to avoid, if I'm trying to avoid all these other things, then I'm going to probably put myself into a position where I'm overworking and exercise. Right. So both of those they're great things and bad things, right? They can own you either way. One beautiful piece of mindfulness that we don't talk enough about is that in that 8-hour binge day, if you're mindfully aware, I need rest. This isn't procrastination. I'm mindfully allowing myself to rest.
Right.
That's okay. Right. Yeah. That kind of numbing is fine. I'm okay with that. It's I'm sitting here in avoidance because I don't want to deal with my life. That's mindfully taking you out of your life and keeping you in a thought spiral or a shame spiral or whatever it is that you get into because you're not showing up.
Absolutely. And it's so easy to talk to ourselves about that too and be like, yeah, but I really do need rest because I really did have a hard week and I really do need rest. And you probably do. I think generally in 2023, all of us need rest all the time.
Right.
We are an entire society of traumatized people at this moment. I get it. However, could that rest be found through a mindful walk outside?
Yeah.
If exercise is not your numbing thing, could that rest, which by the way, I'm kind of jealous of that. That's something and work. That's also a very productive numbing technique.
Until it's 2 a.m. and you're sitting there like, I can't think anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you really do need the rest.
Right. Exactly.
And so it's about figuring out, we all have to examine ourselves to figure these things out.
Right.
Are you talking yourself into the fact that you need rest and that's why you're watching TV for 8 hours?
Yeah.
Or is it you really need an 8-hour rest? Could some of those hours be reading a book or chatting with your partner, or playing with your dog? Like those are also restful things.
Right. You just said something that was really, really important to mindfulness. And you said, talk to yourself. And that is such a huge piece of mindfulness is hearing that inner voice, listening to that guidance, whatever you want to call it. Your inner love child is what I have a lot of my people that come and talk to me. They're like, this mean girl. I'm like, no, it's the inner love child, right? Like that person wants to love you. Quit, victimizing that person. Let's really love her or him, whoever it is. But, talking to yourself is a huge part of mindfulness. What is it that I need? What is it that I want? Where do I want to be right now? Those are huge pieces of mindfulness.
Agreed. Yeah. And that is a skill. And if you don't have that skill, you can learn it. Right. It's not like, oh, I wasn't born with that, so I can't do anything about it. It's a skill that you can build on. Or
the lovely excuse of, this is the way I've always been. That's great. Is it working for you? Because it clearly isn't working for you. So what can we do to change it? I always offer kind of 6 different ways to improve your mindfulness. I don't know if you want to go into that.
Please. We would love oh my gosh, Danielle, we're so excited for your 6 top ways. Let's hear it.
So the first one is quiet. Right. So whether that's meditation, I'm a meditation instructor, have been for a long time. It's my jam. It's not everybody's jam, but it's one of those things that if you take time to get quiet, I don't care if that means that you're just sitting on the floor or quiet of journaling or quiet silence of meditation. Yeah. This is how we immediately increase our mindfulness. Yeah. If you're someone who's like, you do not know how loud my head is, I'm going to tell you, great. Talk to a therapist. They'll tell you how great their head is like moving all the time, right? It's so loud. We have a million things happening, but the quickest way to get into a state of mindfulness is to get quiet.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Let the thoughts come, breathe them out. That's the number one way. Speaking of breath, that's number two, right?
I love that.
Yeah. Nervous system needs to be regulated some way, and breath is our natural source.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into a space that we can feel our breath.
Yeah.
Not automatic breath, but true deep breathing in through your nose. I always say, visualize a color.
Mm-hmm.
Inhale that ribbon of color. Let it, slide down your throat, hitting your belly button, sitting there and filling up your womb. If you're a female, male, just that, stomach area, and letting that color come back out.
I love that.
Yeah. Beautiful, calming way to get into a mindfulness place. It also allows focus, right? Because we're clearing our mind.
Yeah.
You cannot mindfully be taking a breath and be thinking about what you're going to eat for dinner. It just, you're not there, right? So this is a really great way.
Can I ask more questions about the breath?
Of course. Yes.
Okay. So I'm a breathwork practitioner also, and a meditation teacher too, though I haven't done it in years. It's been 3 years. My practice just kind of took over, and I find that I teach a lot of those things to my one-on-one clients, and that makes me happy.
Right.
When you're doing breath work with clients, what kinds of breath work do you practice? Is it more yogic breath work? Is it things that you've developed over the years of being a therapist? What do you do?
Both.
Okay.
And it depends on where someone is, right? So if I have somebody in front of me that is naturally, say, they're running all the time, or they do practice yoga or Pilates, or they're a meditator, we can get into some more of that ujjayi breathing. But if you are new to breath work, I am not going to have you deep in that kind of headspace of breathing, because you're going to pass out first and foremost. And I don't want that. And two, you may not be prepared for the sensations that are going to come up. Breath work requires that you're present, but it's also going to bring forth things that you may not be ready to touch yet. So if we're new and we're super traumatized and we are trying to get into a space where you're just willing to talk, we may just practice some really calm breathing.
Yeah.
Settle the soul is what I say. Let's settle it down, right?
Yeah.
Or we may practice the box breathing, or we may practice me counting, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 holds. Nothing that's really deep. We really just want you to get into the action of it. As far as if somebody's a little bit more advanced, then I will take them through what I like to call, and it's silly that I called it that, but roller coaster breathing. So we start kind of at that launch pad of we're normal breathing. We take really, really long inhales to get to the top of the roller coaster. Long exhales to get to the bottom. And then we may do a couple little quick inhales and exhales, right? Just to kind of get the body re-regulated. And depending on how someone does, it may be a minute, it may be 5 minutes of different expressions of breath. That's been huge for a lot of people.
I love that too. And there is a neuroscience backing for that.
Yes.
So I will try to link the study below if I can remember to do so. But there is a study done by neuroscientists and psychologists together about how when you exhale to the point that you cannot exhale any more breath, and you try to make that exhale longer than your inhale, it actually slows down your prefrontal cortex, which is amazing for anxious people like me. And I know I work with a lot of people who also have anxiety. So that's such a great way to kind of ease in even just to the therapeutic process, because already you're getting people calm enough that they can release their stuff.
Yeah. And what I've found, which is so beautiful, and I predominantly work with women, I do couples therapy as well. Yeah. So for women, I find that by the time we get to, say, about 35 seconds in, I can start to see the emotional rise begin to slow down, which again, we know why that's happening. But about a minute in, I see the tears start to form, and I'm like, let it go. Let it go immediately. And the reason why is we want to be deliberate in the slowdown. And so breath is the beautiful access there.
Yeah, it really is. Okay. So what else? What are the other? We have 2 so far. We have quiet, which may be meditation as well, and breath work. What else?
Right. And the third one is to slow, which is why we do that, right? We talk about the breath work. We're talking about slowing down, making the deliberate and slow actions.
Yeah.
So for me, that could be as simple as getting up in the morning, going to my meditation space and having my coffee in a very mindful manner, or my tea, or whatever it is that I'm having,
Yeah.
not forcing anything, slowing down. This is something we don't do. We don't do it enough. So the slow down, being deliberate, maybe it's even just, I know that it's going to be an hour for me to get to point A to point B. I'm going to give myself an hour and a half so that I don't have to rush. I don't have to get into a frantic place.
Right.
And I can be very mindful about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's just those slow, deliberate actions, being careful about what you do and how you do it. And we don't take enough time to do that. Right?
Yeah.
Right. And
it's
even
the hustle society we've got going on here. Yeah.
Even in the evening, being deliberate in the slowdown. So a lot of times, I know me, I'm a mom of 3. My son plays select baseball. I have one that's about to graduate. I have another that is 16. Yeah. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
You got them to that point. It's a miracle.
I know, right? Everyone's safe, happy, and healthy. I'm good, right?
You are.
Yeah. So, it's about not rushing to the end of the day too, right? Yeah. So we may have practice and we're getting home at 10 o'clock and it's hustle, get in the bath, all of these things, but instead saying it's going to be okay. Yeah. The next hour is going to go by regardless if I'm in this frantic space or not. Right. And being very deliberate about what we're doing. So necessary. So that's 3.
So wise. And also, just for the other moms out there, I mean, that is part of it, right? Is like, no matter how you slice it, the bedtime routine is probably going to be an hour.
Easy.
So you can be stressed about the whole thing. Well, you just brush your teeth already. What is the holdup? Or you can just be like, okay, it's going to be an hour. I accept this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be chill.
Yeah. A lot of times I will hear moms, let's sidetrack for just a second. And they'll tell me, I'm trying to teach responsibility and accountability. And I always say I parent a little differently. I do parent from a very therapeutic, ideology. For me, I hear them talk about accountability and responsibility. And I always say life is going to teach them those things.
Yeah.
And, going to school or having a job outside of school or whatever, those things are about accountability and responsibility.
Yeah.
Yes, we have accountability in families and all of that too. But brushing your teeth and yelling at them, like, are you being accountable? Are you holding your responsibility? That literally does nothing. We go tone deaf to that kind of stuff in our lives. And we're not teaching them mindfulness. We're teaching them to constantly people please, to rush, to hurry, to hustle. Instead, hey, buddy, did you brush your teeth? No. Okay. Can you do me a favor and brush your teeth? Yeah, absolutely. It's that honey to vinegar thing. A lot of people say, well, that's gentle parenting. It's not, at least in my perspective. For me, it's, do you know what you're supposed to be doing? You do? Right. Great. Let's do it.
Yeah. Right. And it's also so kid dependent too.
Right.
I mean, every kid is completely different. My mom always says, I raised these 2 girls the same. They could not be more different. I mean, we are very similar in that we're both very strong feminists. We're successful businesswomen. Like, we know how to get ourselves together.
Right. And I may be, the one that will walk into the bathroom, pick up the toothbrush and the toothpaste and then put it in their hand. And they're like, got it. Got it. You didn't have to say anything else, right? Yeah. I didn't have to yell. Like, it's literally in your hand. You maybe stick it in your face, right? Yeah. So, I mean, there's different ways. And yes, every child is different. And I'm the only child. So, I have the only child plus the perfectionism, all of the things that came with the only child standard, right? All of those things, plus a Virgo. So that's a hot mess.
I love it. But I understand the perfectionism completely. Yes.
Yeah. So it's just really about what works for your child, what works for you. Can you mindfully show up and find a space where everything works for both of you?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So what's our 4th tip?
Stop.
Okay.
Literally just stop. I cannot tell you how often people will say, well, I've been doing this and this and this and this. I'm like, my God, I feel anxious just talking to you. Can you just maybe stop? Right. Yeah. So we've gotten quiet. Yeah. We've practiced our breath. We've slowed down. Now we're allowing ourselves that full stop. I actually do this in between seeing people in the day. I'll block out at least 5 minutes where it's quiet.
Yeah.
I'm not on social media. I'm not checking email. I'm literally just taking time to recenter, recalm. You cannot give the best of yourself if you do not regroup. And so
Mm-hmm.
stopping and being mindful about that, allowing your mind and your body to settle is a huge, huge way to get back into center.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think this comes up so much for us as therapists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because one of my clients the other day was saying, why are sessions 50 minutes instead of 60?
Mm-hmm.
And it's literally because I guarantee you we're going to go 5 minutes over.
Yes.
It's just how it happens. And then I need 5 minutes to regroup. I want to sit in silence. I want to energetically disconnect from the last person I worked with to show up fully for the next person that I work with.
Right.
And it's our job to show up as the mindful person with the next client that we work with.
And that's for anybody in any business. Like that's such a big thing, is that you get to the end of the day and you feel mentally and emotionally exhausted. You have carried with you everything that you have experienced throughout the day, every conversation that rubbed you the wrong way, every look, every question, every hard project, every victory maybe. But you've gotten to the end of the day and you are mentally and emotionally exhausted because you've not taken enough time to stop.
Yeah.
Right? You have to disconnect. You have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Big thing. So the next one is touch.
Okay.
Which is really beautiful. And I know you can explain the neuroscience behind why we want that physical touch. But noticing where I'm also a Reiki practitioner. And so for me, in traditional therapy, what I found to be so missing was connecting mind, body, soul. And for me, I will often teach, put your hand on your forehead for just a minute, cover your eyes, cup your eyes for just a second to give yourself that physical residence that you're okay. Put your hands right below your collarbone, fingertips to fingertips, to allow not only that feel of heartbeat, but just that presence of being calm and soothed. This does a beautiful service to our bodies and to our minds. Self-connection is so missing in our society. And so we talk about self-love and inner peace and all these things. Well, you have to connect to yourself physically too. Remember those 5 masters, there was physical in there. That doesn't just mean working out or eating. It also means physically connecting.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I think a lot of the hipper, let's say, neuroscience, and I'm using quotation marks for those listening, the hipper neuroscience lately is focused so much on co-regulation of your nervous system with another person. So I think that's also really useful. That would look like holding hands with someone, or you each putting a hand on each other's heart, or hugging. You can co-regulate your nervous system. So if your partner is very amped and you're very calm, can literally help them calm down by touching them.
Right.
Our bodies are made that way, which I think is such a beautiful thing. However, the most recent neuroscience doesn't talk enough about how we can regulate ourselves without another person too. And that can look like all of the ways that you just mentioned. There's also a really incredible yogic practitioner, and I'm struggling to think of her name, but she taught about how you could calm yourself by, and I'm showing people on the YouTube, if you're not on the YouTube, what I'm doing is running my fingertips up and down the inside of my forearm.
Right.
And that's maybe something your mom used to do to you when you were little and you were upset or whatever, but you can also do it to yourself.
Right.
And that can really calm things down.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful.
Even as getting into some of those spaces of hitting, the vagal nerve, where we're tapping. I purposefully went to learn emotional freedom tapping because I wanted another, space to teach people that personal connection. So you may not want to do the tapping at the top of the head and then third eye and the eyelid, all of those things. But if you just want to hit the karate chop part of your hand with 2 or 3 fingers, doesn't matter really, just to give yourself that space and that physical touch, but also just that reorientation of what's going on in your body too. Huge. Perfect for anxiety as well.
I learned EFT a long, long time ago. For those who are not familiar with EFT, it's emotional freedom technique.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been shown to calm and soothe anxiety for some people. We don't
Right.
have all of the studies to show the full breadth of what it can do.
Right.
I tend to not use it so much because for me, I have to do more, and this is purely just for me, but for me, I have to do more physicality type things. Like I have
Sure.
to
Yeah.
go for a 10-minute walk or stand up and do some squats at my desk, which looks really cool. But those are the kinds of things that soothe me the most, or
Yeah.
sitting and meditating and doing breath work for a few minutes.
Right.
But I do
Yeah.
have clients who have been so helped by EFT.
You know, what's so interesting about EFT is it can be done anywhere and it doesn't necessarily have to follow the sequence that,
Yeah.
is so traditional. When I'm teaching EFT, I don't allow anybody to sit. That's
Okay.
the thing for me, that it's because it does need to have that space to kind of be physical. And when we're sitting, we're kind of slumping,
Yeah.
we're not really active in what we're doing. So I require people to stand
Okay.
when teaching it. That's been something big for me. But actually, the American Medical Board actually just was like, yep, that is a technique that we can write off on that medically works. Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah.
I need that study. Can you send it to me? Do
I'll
you
be
have it
happy
somewhere?
to. I do.
Oh,
Yeah. Dawson
okay.
Church. Yeah. I was like, wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to continue this process. It's been really beautiful for a lot of people who are really high in trauma or really high in anxiety. But
Yeah.
again, or ADHD.
Right.
Huge.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
All right. So our last one, our sixth
Yes.
one is
Yes.
to orientate, meaning coming back to your senses.
Okay.
So giving yourself that space to, what do I see? What do I smell? What do I taste? What do I hear? Really getting into those 5 senses. So you've already gotten into the touch.
Yeah.
But what else is happening around you? So these are really easy ways to improve your mindfulness and to
Yeah.
give yourself the ability to ground.
Right. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love those. Thank you for sharing those with us.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I know you mainly practice cognitive behavioral therapy, which
Yes.
it is one of the most impactful forms of therapy for someone with serious anxiety, I feel, in other words, because you're able to really focus on those 5 senses. That's kind of the beginning of it.
Right.
And we do that in EMDR also. I use EMDR a lot with my trauma clients. And as we're resourcing and finding that safe place for that person to rest in, we go through the 5 senses.
Right.
And especially the tactile one, like what do your clothes feel like on your skin?
Yeah.
What do your feet feel like bare in this place that you love? Because it does have this way of working with our brain chemistry to really bring us to another place, which is sometimes what you need. You need a safe place when you're trying to work through things.
Yes. And we need a safe space, period, right? None of us, we all have to have safety. That's why we have, all of the regulations that we have. But for me, cognitive behavioral therapy was so necessary for me. I personally got into this. I went back to school. I started as a news anchor, right? That was my beginning of my career. And I went back to school because I had 3 major traumas happen really, really quickly.
Okay.
And when I decided to kind of move through this process of healing all of not only just that trauma, but trauma that was kind of sitting in my life and holding me hostage to perfectionism and to, all of these things that were not serving me. I couldn't find what I needed. Yeah. And I also lived in a small town, and there was no way in hell anyone was going to see me walk into a therapy office. No, thank you. No, thank you. And so when I was like trying to find stuff, I stumbled across CBT and I was like, oh, this makes so much sense to me. Yeah. Oh, wait, this is my purpose. Okay, I get it now, right? And so for me, being able to combine, like I said, mind, body, soul, and helping someone understand, one, you're safe. Yeah. It starts somewhere. Yeah. It's coming through your emotional body. You're taking action and behaviors because of said thing. Right. And now it's bleeding into everything that you do. We can actually change not only the brain pattern, but the behavior. That to me is one of the most powerful things. It's why I get up every day. Seeing someone go from broken to, which no one's broken, but they believe that of themselves. Right. to, wow, I really owned this day. I mean,
Yeah,
it makes you want to dance on water, right? It's like, it's
absolutely.
amazing. It's
It is
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah,
And I think part of the power behind CBT is that it's something you do for you. You know, it is,
absolutely.
I complain all the time about traditional talk therapy. And
I'd
I
like to
think,
be re-traumatized, please, over and over and over
yeah,
again.
please let me tell you my story of trauma 90,000 times and let's pretend that it's going to get better.
Right. I love this.
Yeah, no, I think it's a money grab, quite frankly. But what I love about CBT is that it puts you in the driver's seat as the
Right.
client. You learn
Yeah.
how to do stuff for yourself. You learn how to process things on your own. And like I always say to all of my clients, the best thing that ever happens to me is when I work myself out of a job. You
Amen.
learn all
Hmm.
of these techniques. You learn how to do all of this stuff yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I'll see you every now and then when something major comes up and we'll do some EMDR around it.
Yeah.
And then you go back out into the world. You know, I
Yeah.
don't believe in that, like, let's stay with the same therapist for 5 years thing.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
It
No.
causes bad boundaries also. So I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
I love that about CBT is that you're so in the driver's seat. You learn how to manage your anxiety
Yeah.
through behavior.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, any little small change that you can make that's positive is going
Yeah.
to create change, period.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the truth, right? If we're changing a behavior and we're moving into a new space, we are going to experience good things,
Yeah.
hopefully, if you're
Yeah.
using the behavior correctly. And, there's no reason for anyone to believe that they can't make changes. And so for me to know that, here's the pattern, here's what we need to do, here's what we need to change, here's why it happened. What do you want to do with it now? That's the
Right.
question I always ask. What do you want to do with this now? Right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't want to change it, then I'm not going to work with you to change it.
Right. If it's
Right.
fine for you, then it's fine for me. It's about
Right.
your life.
Yeah. I mean, I remember in the very beginning of my own personal healing journey, I thought, if I change this hustle mentality within me, I will never get anything done.
Oh, that's such a limiting belief.
Such a lie, right? It's such a
Yeah.
lie. But I believed that. I did. I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up with entrepreneurs. I had a dad that was just kick ass, always, always going, never even sit down kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I inherited that and really took that on. And when I realized, oh, you can be so much more productive if you just let this go.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that's what I love to do. That's why I think CBT is so powerful.
I think it's so powerful too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing that to the world.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. My gosh. You know what? I told my husband the other day, I said, I wake up every day, and even if the day is hard, I love what I do. I
Yeah.
love that I get to sit with people and honor their stories and
Yeah.
their paths. It is such a beautiful experience. What a beautiful life I get to have because of that.
I completely agree. And I love neuroscience as well. And I got my master's there because I felt like it was
Mhm.
such an important part of the work that I do.
Right.
But I'd find nothing more rewarding than sitting with a person and helping them, guiding them towards their own healing in whatever way that means for them.
Right.
And then getting to see their life completely change. Like, what could be better than
Mhm.
that?
Nothing. Not a
Nothing.
single thing. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it
Yeah. Thank you
is.
for doing what you do.
Thank you. So, Danielle, let's talk a little bit about the spiritual side of things. We were
Sure.
talking about this off camera before, but
Yeah.
I would love to hear about your spiritual practices, your spirit guides, and what they've added to what you do.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I grew up as a child that it was just this awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
This deep awareness. So my spiritual practices start with meditation every morning, and
Okay.
I will meditate. I meditate a little different than what I teach people because I always say, okay, source, God,
Yeah.
universe, whatever, come
Yeah.
and give me any information that I need to know.
Right.
And I will do a little bit of automatic writing every day.
Okay.
So if
Can you
you
tell us what automatic writing is for those who might
yeah.
not know?
Yeah. So just whatever comes to mind, whatever you're being guided. I don't do any kind of judgment to it. I don't even really, a lot of times, even open my eyes. I will
Yeah.
just, write whatever comes. And a lot of times, which I think is so beautiful, I have a pretty popular Instagram page. It's called Get Your Life Together Girl. And a lot of my quotes that I write daily come from that practice. And so a lot of times people will say, oh my gosh, you have no idea how much I needed this. And I often say, well, that's because I said, hit me with whatever somebody needs today.
Yeah.
So that's a part of my spiritual practices. I listen. I'm very intuitive with what I need and want. The people that have worked with me for a little bit longer will often hear me say, oh, I have chills. I know we're on the right path.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the indication to me that we're really in the right place. So, for me, spirituality is essential in healing. It's essential in life.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to look the same as what anybody else's, is. It's whatever it means to you.
Right.
So that's my practice anyway.
I love that. Have you read the Sarah Wiseman book? I'm trying to think of I think it's called Your Divine Life or something along those lines.
No. I have to write that down.
Oh, I love Sarah Wiseman. I've read every book she's ever written, and they're all channeled writings.
Okay.
And she talks about automatic writing as channeled writing from your guides, and they're giving you what you need for the day. And in this book, she gives you writing prompts that have been so beneficial for me and for the clients that I've recommended the book to. It really helps you dive into yourself, to your own spiritual practice, to help you sort out who your guides are. And then towards the end of the book, she even gives writing prompts to figure out like the things that you are unhappy with in your life and that you want to work on. And you do some automatic writing around how to work on those things.
Wow.
So
okay.
I think that's a great resource for people. Sarah Wiseman, check it out.
Sounds like Amazon's getting a visit from me.
Yeah. I'll link it in the show notes to everybody.
All right.
It's so great.
I'm writing it down now. Okay, perfect. Okay. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah. If you had a new client that came and told you, I'm really having trouble with X, Y, and Z, whatever that problem was, what would you say to them first? What would be your first response?
How does that make you feel?
Oh, very therapeutic of you. And then would you guide them? I mean, do you sense what you need to guide them towards, like whether it's EFT or breathwork or CBT?
Yes and no. Depends on how open that person is, just like I'm sure what you experience too.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. A lot of times it really is that question, how does it make you feel, is a very interesting space to start.
Yes.
Because one, it will either come out as, I don't know, which means CBT is our pathway.
Right.
Or it's this word salad of a million different emotions. And I know that they are in tune with what's happening with them, but they don't necessarily have the definitions to put with what's happening. And so I can much more rapidly get into a space of giving them tools like EFT or getting into breath work or meditation or whatever it might be that we pick for them.
Yeah.
Because they're more open and aware of what's happening. So generally that question is the indicator as to where do we go next?
I do the same. I don't say, how does that make you feel? But I can kind of gauge from whatever they're telling me, whether we're going to use EMDR trauma therapy or whether we're going to go into transformational healing, the other modality that I practice, that I founded 5 years ago. So I think it also depends on openness, right? Like some people are very open to working with their guides and their intuition, and they're open to this idea of seeing their future, like visualizing things from the past differently and then seeing their future. But I think EMDR is such a great starting point because it has no spiritual overtones at all. So if a person is not there, that's okay. But we can still use neuroscience to retrain our brains out of whatever is going on right now.
Yeah. Same with CBT and that same pathway, right? Because there's not a spiritual base to it unless you're practicing it with a spiritual base. But for me, it's really dependent on openness and what they're saying. If they're saying, I don't know, that means they probably don't know, or they don't have the words, the verbiage yet to get to the surface of what we need to get to. And then I know too, it's a slower process, and that's fine. We're going to meet you wherever you are. That's our job. It's our honor, right? To humble the experience and say, that's fine. You don't actually have to know today. All I need to know is you're here
Right.
And I want to help you and you want help. So let's go from there.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us, Danielle. We are so lucky to have such a wise woman with us today. And we'll include all of your links in the show notes below. Is there anything in particular that you want to highlight before we say goodbye?
I'm all about meeting you where you are. So if there's a resource that I have, go to it. If you want to reach out, I always answer my own DMs on all of the social medias. Send an email, whatever. I'm open. I'm not one of those people that hides behind 500 people. I really want to give of myself because I think that I have been in that space where things don't feel good. Yeah. And if I can help at least one person a day, I'm happy and feeling like I'm fulfilling my purpose here.
I love that. Thank you so much, Danielle.
Thank you for having me. It's a wonderful honor. I think we need to do this again somehow. We got to figure it out.
Absolutely. I would love to.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you.
I absolutely loved this conversation. I am so grateful for Adalina for having me on the Cosmic Leadership Podcast. She is such a wealth of knowledge. To hear the full unedited version of the podcast, you can actually go to the show notes and be linked directly to that episode of Cosmic Leadership. You may also recognize Adalina's name if you're a normal listener here. She was a guest on this show prior, and I'll link that brilliant conversation in the show notes as well. You can also follow her and visit her on Instagram at Adalina East, and you can also find her on Facebook at Adalina East. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. If you're seeking daily inspiration and additional tools and tips, you can follow me on social media if you're not already at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Clapper, and Threads. You can also visit my show notes and my blog as well as my website at getyourlifetogethergirl.com. Thank you so much for being a valuable member of this community. If you love this show, please feel free to share it with other people and rate it on whatever podcast platform you listen to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.